Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living life in peace. Woo-hoo.
Hello, welcome to Conversations with SOTU. I'm Adrian Metcalf.
And I'm Josh Schwartzbeck.
This week we're joined by local author Steve Schatz. Steve has written the Adima Chronicles. Tell you more about that later. Steve has offered to interview SOTU because Josh and I live in our own little bubble with SOTU and our work with them. And we thought you might be interested to hear some questions from somebody who doesn't live in that bubble. So thank you, Steve.
Sure, my pleasure.
Are you ready to channel?
I'm ready. Are you ready for me?
Here we go.
All right, here we go. Alrighty. Well. So we're supposed to come through today and we're supposed to shut up and let Steve ask the questions rather than come through with a 45-minute soliloquy on the subject of our choice. So we are going to deign to communicate on that level, and we hope that you will find this somewhat, what shall we say, amusing and certainly interesting. All right, Stephen, welcome. This is our friend, and certainly this is not without precedent. We have spoken with our friend before, and we are here. We're not here to fillet him or anyone else, but we are here to answer your questions as honestly and as intriguingly as possible. All right, Stephen.
And succinctly.
And succinctly. Well, we cannot guarantee that.
Well, thanks. What I'm trying to do is give a view of who or what is SOTU for those who kind of came to this like I did, wondering what was all this about. So some basic questions.
All right.
First off, what's the connection with Josh? Why Josh as opposed to Adrian as opposed to...
Excellent question. Well, Adrian is too much Miss Goody Two-Shoes in order to be able to... Well, that's the appropriate answer. Mm-hmm. This has been a pre-life agreement, certainly so. It has been a dynamic that has actually been in the works for a couple of 300 years in the dynamics of the actual manifestation of the voice in this sort of way. You must understand that through this age of technology, through the rapid advancements that earthly humanity has made in the past 100 years or so, especially on the technological level, that you have grown to a point where you need a certain validation other than a disembodied voice coming through giving very generalized information. We chose the channel because he lived a life. And in fact, his experiences up until he started channeling, which was approximately at age 42 or so, we believe, that it was necessary in order for him to have an identity, for him to be able to be in a position where he was not overwhelmed and, what shall we say, snowballed by this act. Those that do this type of work, it is very difficult to separate the dynamic of ego from that. And so we would suggest to you that the more that one has lived a life previously to doing this dynamic of work, the clearer and the more objective they may be, and perhaps even the more forgiving to themselves and others.
Okay.
We answer your question?
Yeah. But why not go to get, you're trying to get a message out, it seems. You're trying to inform humanity or some parts of humanity.
We don't know that we'd call it a message. We are trying to remind you who you really are. That's the dynamic. We are, you know, all we do is we describe the dynamics of the abilities that you already have. And so we would have you, you know, you're all, as we have described in previous shows, you are already creating your reality 100%. And so it would be better for you if you understood how you actually do that. And that is basically all we're doing. Certainly we can make the, what shall we say, the metaphysical connections, the spiritual connections, but even the word spirit and the word divine have negative connotations attached to them these days. But really, if you understood that you are a part of the mechanics of creation, the human body, the human experience, the human incarnation is a mechanical portion of that dynamic of creation. And as you begin to realize that and you begin to understand how the mechanics of it all work, then you will begin to create a better reality for yourself and therefore create a better reality for your entire world.
But why not be president or be a film star or
because
something like that?
Because that takes the choice away from you.
Larger platform.
Again, because that takes the choice away from you. We are...
you. SOTU come through a...
But we're not here to be your God. We're here to be your cosmic kick in the butt.
Okay.
Well, but again,
don't you got a bigger boot if you...
Again, this dynamic of this step forward in human transformation. You know, you notice we don't say evolution. You know, so many people talk about ascension, so many people talk about the dynamic of growth, so many people talk about the expansion of consciousness. You know, religious people talk about the raptures and all of that. Well, really, all you're doing is describing an advancement in consciousness, a step forward beyond the old paradigm of competition and comparison. And that is where you are right now. And so that choice has to be humanity's. It cannot be because there is a personality or an energetic being that is telling you what to do. And that's not why we're here. We're not here to tell you what to do. We are only here to remind you that you have choices and that you can begin to make more positive choices for yourselves and your world. So that is why we're, you know, this one also, we would have chosen someone that wished to be famous. Well, this one never wished to be famous. You know, in fact, he wished to hide in the closet, but, oh, that's a whole other story. but all right, easy, Stephen, easy,
Yes,
Stephen.
yes.
All right. So, but understand that that's the movement here. The movement has to be your choice. Evolution is an unconscious dynamic. Transformation, on the other hand, is a conscious dynamic. Now, your species is very particular. It's not that no species has never made the choice to transform, but you have a rare opportunity that you can make the choice to become an advanced civilization before reality forces you. Ultimately, reality will force you to be either you will become an advanced species, an evolved species, a transformed species, or you will die. You know, it's as clear as it is. Now, Mother Earth has wiped her face clean of intelligent beings 5 times before. So it's not like it's unprecedented. You know, the question, and consciousness will continue. The growth of consciousness will continue, no matter what. So it can either be through your choice, which would be a huge step to realize, to look at your world and to, with forgiveness and with healing, realize that your reality has been formed through the dynamics of trauma, through the dynamics of pain, through the dynamics of false beliefs. And these dynamics of these false beliefs have built upon each other so that they have become a paradigm. Well, any paradigm is always subject to change. And so when you understand that, and when you realize that you have not only the opportunity, but the real power to be able to change it, well, that becomes a whole different movie then, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And you've just answered 3 or 4 of my questions.
Right.
See how you are?
Well, we like that, you know.
Yeah. You seem to you seem to talk about humanity a lot, but
well, we're
what
particularly talking about earthly humanity.
Okay, but there's such a difference in scale from one person. What can one person do versus what many nations can do when we have such different worldviews. When you say I create my reality, are you talking about one me, or are you talking about me as a part of humanity, or how do it work like that?
Well, that's a great paradox of existence, isn't it? That you create your reality 100% through the dynamics of your thoughts, your words, and your feelings, through the lenses of your beliefs, and at the same time you are involved in a great dance of co-creation with each other, with Mother Earth, and with the divine. So that's the great paradox. You are absolutely creating it all, and you are following a path. It's like you are in a river going in a certain direction. Now you can go over here and you can go over there and you can, you know, dive under the waves and you can, you know, but you're still in that river. And so that's the dynamic of incarnation. You're in this river of earthly humanity, in this movement of earthly humanity that you will move beyond, one way or the other. Adrienne.
And I think you said recently in one of the shows that the purpose of an individual lifetime, the thing an individual came in to experience
Absolutely.
and grow is absolutely in line with that movement.
How could it not be?
Of the greater river.
How could it not be? Because I'm choosing to incarnate in an earthly, physical, human body, you are joining up with that plan. Now there's a lot of movement and a lot of choices within the plan, you know, and certainly, you know, we aren't going to get into parallel realities at this point, but there are many possible outcomes.
And what happens when one reality that's being created conflicts with another's?
How can that be? If you are involved in a great dance of co-creation, then everything has meaning. There are no coincidences. You know, we often say no one lives or dies by accident. Well, nothing occurs by happenstance either. You know, one choice builds on another choice, builds on another choice, and that's the miracle of the divine, of how it all could work together. You know, in many ways, you have allowed yourselves to be disempowered by being divided against one another. And in fact, it's the commonalities that you could begin to focus upon rather than the differences. You know, we because of the Peace Genesis Project, the organization that we have helped to create, peace begins with enough for all. And so if you begin with a platform where everyone begins equally, now that doesn't mean that some people are better than and some people are less than. In this world, certainly there is that belief. But if everyone had an equal start, then everyone could, and had their basic needs met, then everyone could at least live up to their own human potential, if they so choose. Right? So the opportunity in the dynamic of all are created equal comes from that dynamic. Now that's not to say that someone cannot be more or less, right? For the person that has a major education and major opportunities for life experience can consider themselves more than someone who has not. In other words, someone who has perhaps learning disabilities or something like that. So there you have a situation where someone truly is more than another person, but that doesn't mean better than, because you are all divine beings manifested in a physical form. You have all chosen, whether you remember it or not, to be on your path. The question is, are you going to be distracted from that path? Often situations happen in your world where the dynamics of your reality come around again and again and again, and so many of you find it uncomfortable, so you don't deal with it. Unfortunately, it is soul's purpose to keep giving you those opportunities. And if they cannot speak to you with positive things, if your soul cannot speak to you in positive things, it will speak to you in the negative. So if you look at the reflection of your world right now, what would you say the reflection is? The reflection is separation. The reflection is one person against another, sure. Republicans against Democrats, right against left, black against white, green against blue, orange against purple. It's all conflict. It's all, well, you know that your reality is asking you exactly the opposite, right? In a dynamic like that, reality is saying, you're being divided, you're being divided, you're being divided. Why are you going to be divided? Because you need to come together. You need to realize that you are basically one species. You have lost the ability to think collectively. Not that you are to lose the dynamics of your individuality, but that you, from that place of individuation and individuality, it's time to reach out and reconnect with each other without losing one iota of that hard-fought, hard-won identity.
So you aren't talking about going back to the garden experience of one mind.
No, you couldn't do it. If we used to teach a whole dynamic through the dynamics of guided meditation around these sorts of things. And we used to take people back to an experience of the garden. Oh, it was so uncomfortable for people. Well, it was because there was no sense of I. There was no sense of self. There was only the sense of we. There was really no individual choice other than, are you going to eat that piece of fruit or are you going to eat that piece of fruit? It was really only basic primal dynamics. And when that dynamic of the separation happened, of course, because that separation was painful, that separation from the collective was painful in its own way, because all of a sudden all of your safety and security was gone. There was safety and security in the dynamic of the collective group. As that dynamic was gone, there you were, left with your own little ego. Well, that was your first steps into individuation. Of course, you form together in tribal groups, and tribalism, and and you began to work together in relatively small groups of generally 100 or less. And that, believe it or not, anywhere between 25 and 50 individuals provides the most powerful opportunities for manifestation. Because when you as humans, and this is the one thing you have forgotten, dear ones, when you come together and you create collectively, it's a synergistic dynamic where the sum is much greater than the parts. In other words, when you come together and your energy is amplified by communicating and desiring collectively.
So, do you foresee if humanity gets the boot in the butt and starts moving forward in transformation, do you see it as a poof, it happens, or more of a this flower opens over here, this flower opens over there? Can it be done piecemeal?
It already is. It's being done incrementally. We wouldn't necessarily call it piecemeal, but we would call it incrementally. But it's going to, you see, it's increased, the dynamic of the energy is increasing exponentially. All right, let us just say, without getting into any gloomy and doomy stuff, that your reality is going to be shaking you awake this year. There are any number of things that are occurring and are going to be occurring, not the least of which is all the saber rattling and all of that that is going on in your world right now. Because, dear ones, if you are kept afraid, by being afraid, you stay in your reptilian brain. Your reptilian brain is one that is keyed for a dynamic of survival. So it is fight or flight. And it is very adolescent in its own nature. Black or white, good or bad, with us or against us. You know, and if you look at the dynamic ever since 9/11, haven't you all been allowing the collective reptilian brain to run your world? And especially the United States. Adrienne, you have a question?
Well, I'm just seeing...
Or a comment?
No, the comment was that we're getting close to wrapping it up for this session. But...
So what's your favorite color?
Yes. Yes. No, we actually we have a little time yet. We have time for a short quip
of a question.
Short quip of a question. Say that fast 100 times.
What does one person do to take the next step? What can I do today?
Decide that you will. Decide that you will. Really, you know, it's one thing sitting here in this dynamic and saying, oh, I really wish to make a change. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So
well, what does it mean
Yeah.
to you? Because we wish to tell you, if you make that statement to the universe, the path will start to become apparent to you. But first you have to be willing. It's not like, oh, well, I'll just wait for reality to come and force me to change. No. No, you have to find that dynamic of what's the truth for you in your heart. You know, there are two types of people in your world. There are those that seek to control, and then there are those that are the live and let live kinds of people. You know, those that seek to control, you have allowed them to be in charge of your world. And so the dynamics of fear and rage are at the bottom of the dynamics of what exists in your governments, in the reflection of your militaries, in the whole dynamic of terrorism. You know, we realize we said the T word, and that might be verboten, but the truth of the matter is that as we will get more into the next half of the show, because we will be presenting another half of this in a very short period of time, that in fact the opportunity exists for you all to change everything without having to have it destroyed first. Will you take that opportunity? And that's the question. If you are willing to commit to change, then the opportunities for change will become apparent. All right, we'll be back in a few minutes. We love you all so very, very much. We are SOTU. Until the next time we close, sending you peace, sending you happiness, sending you joy.
I wish to thank you, Steve.
Sure.
This conversation is going to continue in the next episode. If you have questions for SOTU, send them to our website. There's a contact page where you can write in your questions there, and we'll bring them on air. So the conversation will continue in the next episode. We'll see you then. Thanks.
You may say I'm a dreamer.